The transport ship broke through the clouds of Velanther, and Marcus Cole pressed his face closer to the window like a child seeing snow for the first time. Below him, the alien world sparkled. The cities were made of living crystal that grew from the ground itself. Towers of pale blue and deep purple rose toward the sky. Rivers of liquid silver wound between the structures. It was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen in his 53 years of life. "Ambassador Cole, we land in 10 minutes, said Lieutenant Chen from behind him. She was his security chief, a serious woman with sharp eyes and a permanent frown. "Please review the cultural briefing one more time." Marcus turned from the window and smiled at her. "Sarah, I have read it 14 times. I think I have it memorized by now." "Then you know how dangerous these people are," she said. "The Velanthari have conquered 3 star systems. They have never lost a war. Their warriors train for 200 years before they are allowed to carry a blade." "Yes, I know. And you know that humans have only been part of the galactic community for 30 years. We are new. We are weak. We have no powerful allies." Marcus nodded patiently. He had heard all of this before. Earth had sent him to the Galactic Concordat Summit because he was calm, because he was patient, and because he never lost his temper. These were rare qualities in diplomats, and they had served him well for 30 years. The ship landed on a platform of white crystal. When the doors opened, Marcus felt the alien air fill his lungs. It smelled like flowers and electricity. A delegation of Velanthari waited for them at the bottom of the ramp. Marcus had seen pictures of the Velanthari, but pictures did not capture their presence. They were tall, nearly 7 feet, with skin that shimmered like oil on water. Their colors shifted as they moved, purple to blue to green. Their eyes were large and golden, with no pupils that Marcus could see. They wore armor made of the same living crystal as their cities, and they carried curved swords at their hips. The leader of the delegation stepped forward. He was old, Marcus could tell, though he was not sure how he knew this. Perhaps it was the way the others looked at him with respect. "I am High Minister Varth," the alien said. His voice was deep and musical. "You are the human ambassador." It was not a question. Marcus bowed slightly. "I am Marcus Cole. Thank you for receiving us." Varath studied him with those strange golden eyes. "You are small," he said finally, "and soft. I expected something more impressive from a species that has spread across so many worlds so quickly." Lieutenant Chen stiffened beside Marcus, but he only smiled. "We are full of surprises," he said. Varath made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Come, the summit begins tomorrow. Tonight, there is a formal reception. You will meet the other delegations. You will also meet the royal family." He paused. "I suggest you show proper respect. Princess Keleth does not have patience for those who do not." The reception hall was larger than any building Marcus had ever entered. The ceiling was so high that clouds actually formed near the top, small wisps of white drifting between crystal chandeliers. Representatives from 12 different species filled the room. Marcus saw creatures with too many legs, creatures with no legs at all, creatures made of what looked like living light. And then he saw her, Princess. Keleth Version stood at the center of a group of admirers. She was tall, even for a Velanthari, and her skin shifted through colors that Marcus had no names for. She wore armor that looked like frozen starlight, and at her hip hung a sword with a blade that glowed faintly with plasma energy. She was beautiful in the way that a hurricane was beautiful, or a forest fire. Dangerous and impossible to look away from. She was also looking directly at him. Marcus felt the weight of her gaze like a physical pressure. Her golden eyes narrowed. The creatures around her fell silent. Slowly, she walked toward him, and the crowd parted before her like water. "You are the human," she said. Her voice was cold. Marcus bowed. I am Ambassador Marcus Cole. It is an honor to meet you, Your Highness. You looked at me. Marcus blinked. I am sorry? When I entered the room, you looked directly at me. You met my eyes. Her voice grew colder. Among my people, this is a challenge. Only equals meet eyes. Only warriors who wish to fight. Lieutenant Chun stepped forward. Your Highness, Ambassador Cole meant no disrespect. He does not know all of your customs. Ignorance is not an excuse, Keleth said. She had not looked at Chun. Her eyes remained fixed on Marcus. The insult has been given. It must be answered. The room had gone completely silent. Every alien in the hall was watching now. Marcus could feel their eyes on him, could feel the weight of this moment. Your Highness, he said carefully, I apologize for any offense. It was not my intention to challenge you. Your intention does not matter. Your action does. Keleth smiled, and there was no warmth in it. I invoke the right of correction. You have insulted the heir to the Voluntari throne. You will face me in the Blade Circle tomorrow, before the summit begins. You will fight, or your entire species will carry the shame of your cowardice forever. Marcus heard Lieutenant Chun inhale sharply. He heard murmurs spreading through the crowd. He knew what this meant. The Voluntari were the greatest warriors in the known galaxy. Their princess was their champion. She had never lost a duel. She had killed 47 opponents in the Blade Circle. He was an old man, a diplomat. He had gray hair and reading glasses and a bad knee from a car accident 20 years ago. He was going to die tomorrow, but when he looked at Keleth, he did not feel fear. He felt something else, something he had not felt in a long time. It was the feeling he used to get when one of his students at the high school finally understood a difficult concept. It was the feeling he got when a young person in his Aikido class learned to fall without hurting themselves. It was the feeling of seeing someone with great potential who had not yet learned what they were truly capable of. Very well, Marcus said quietly. When would you like to begin? Keleth's eyes widened slightly. She had expected begging, perhaps, or excuses. She had not expected acceptance. Tomorrow, dawn, the Blade Circle and the Palace of Ancestors. She turned and walked away without another word. Lieutenant Chun grabbed Marcus by the arm. Are you insane? She whispered. You just agreed to die. Marcus watched the princess disappear into the crowd. Perhaps, he said, but I have learned that death is not the worst thing that can happen to a person. Losing your honor is worse. Betraying everything you believe in is worse. He patted her hand gently. Do not worry, Sarah. I have been preparing for moments like this my entire life. What does that mean? But Marcus only smiled and said nothing. The night was long on Velanthur. The planet turned slowly, and darkness lasted for 16 hours. Princess Keleth spent those hours in the training hall beneath the palace, practicing forms she had mastered a century ago. Her blade cut through the air with perfect precision. Her feet moved in patterns passed down through 40 generations of her family. She was not nervous. She had never been nervous before a duel. This was simply what she was born to do. Her advisors watched from the edge of the training floor. When she finally stopped to rest, they approached with data tablets and eager expressions. We have analyzed the human species, said Advisor Thaln. A thin Voluntari with skin that shifted through shades of gray. They are remarkably fragile. Their bones break easily. Their reflexes are slow compared to ours. Their natural lifespan is barely 100 years. 100 years, Keleth repeated. She could not imagine it. She was 212 years old, barely an adult by Voluntari standards. Her father was over 1,000. How do they accomplish anything in such a short time? They breed quickly, Thelm said with disgust. Like insects. They multiply and spread. This is how they have colonized so many worlds. Not through strength, but through numbers. Another advisor, Marith, pulled up an image of Marcus Cole on her tablet. This is the one you will face. He is 53 years old. More than half his life is already behind him. He has no military training, no combat experience. He was a teacher before he became a diplomat. A teacher? Kelleth laughed. He taught children? Yes, history and something called fencing. A primitive sword sport. The advisors laughed with her. The sound echoed through the training hall. Kelleth looked at the image of the small human with his gray hair and kind eyes. He looked like someone's grandfather. He looked like he should be sitting in a garden somewhere, telling stories to little ones. This will not be a duel, she said. This will be an execution. I almost feel sorry for him. Do not feel sorry, Thelm said. Feel proud. After tomorrow, the entire galaxy will see what happens to those who insult the Voluntari. The humans will learn their place. Kelleth nodded and returned to her practice later that night. After her advisors had gone, her father came to see her. King Torvax was ancient. His skin no longer shifted colors, but remained a steady deep blue. He moved slowly, leaning on a staff of living crystal. But his eyes were still sharp, still filled with the intelligence that had kept the Voluntari Empire together for 5 centuries. Daughter, he said, may I speak with you? Kelleth set down her blade and bowed. Of course, father. They walked together through the crystal gardens beneath the palace. Bioluminescent flowers glowed softly around them, painting the air with gentle colors. I have fought many species, Torvax said. When I was young, I led the conquest of the Thrall system. I faced their greatest warriors in single combat. I have dueled champions from 9 different worlds. I know, father. Your victories are legendary. Yes, he was quiet for a moment. But there is one species I never faced in battle. The humans, because they are too weak to bother with. Perhaps. Torvax stopped walking and turned to face her. But I have watched them, Kelleth. I have studied their history. They are not like other species. What do you mean? Most species grow strong because they are born strong. The Thrall had natural armor. The Vorn had their telepathy. The Skaxi had their venom. But humans? He shook his head. Humans have nothing. They are soft. They are slow. Their world tried to kill them over and over again. They should have died out long before they ever reached the stars. But they did not. No, they did not. Torvax's eyes grew distant. There is something in them, daughter. Something I do not understand. I have looked into the eyes of human diplomats, human merchants, human soldiers. And in every one of them, I see something strange. Something patient. Something that waits. Kelleth felt a small chill run through her. You are trying to frighten me. I am trying to warn you. Do not underestimate this human. Do not assume the fight is already won. He placed a hand on her shoulder. Be cautious, my daughter. That is all I ask. She wanted to argue. She wanted to tell him that he was growing old, that his mind was failing him, that there was nothing to fear from a species of short-lived weaklings. But she loved her father, and so she simply nodded. I will be cautious, she said. In another part of the palace, Marcus Cole sat alone in his guest chambers. The room was beautiful, with walls of pale crystal that sang softly when the wind touched them. But Marcus did not notice the beauty. He was looking at photographs on his data tablet. His wife, Elena, smiling at their wedding 51 years ago. His daughter, Maria, holding her diploma at her college graduation. His grandchildren, Thomas and little Sophie, playing in the garden behind his house in Ohio. He missed them. He missed them more than he had words to express. The door opened, and Lieutenant Chen entered without knocking. Her face was tight with worry. We need to talk, she said. I know what you are going to say, Sarah. Then you know I am going to tell you that this is insane. You cannot fight her. You will die. Marcus set down the tablet. Yes, I probably will. Then we need to find a way out. We can claim diplomatic immunity. We can say you are sick. We can forge medical records. We can do something. No, why not? Marcus looked at her. In that moment, he did not look like a gentle old man. He looked like something else. Something she could not quite name. Because if I run, humanity runs. Every species in this galaxy will see us as cowards. They will know that when things get difficult, humans flee. They will never respect us. They will never trust us. And eventually, they will decide that we are not worth keeping around. So you will die for politics? I will die for my grandchildren. His voice was soft but firm. I will die so that they can live in a galaxy where humans are respected, where we have friends and allies, where we are not hunted and conquered because we were too afraid to stand up when it mattered. Chun was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. Have you ever even held a sword? Marcus smiled. It was a strange smile, full of secrets. When I was young, I thought I wanted to be a warrior. I trained in many things: fencing, aikido, kendo, judo. I spent decades learning how to fight. He paused. Then I realized that the best way to fight is to prevent the fight from happening at all. So I became a teacher instead, and then a diplomat. But you remember how to fight. The body remembers what the mind forgets. He picked up the tablet again and looked at the photograph of his grandchildren. Whatever happens tomorrow, Sarah, I need you to promise me something. What? Tell them I was brave. Tell them their grandfather faced the greatest warrior in the galaxy and did not run. Tell them that. Lieutenant Chen felt tears in her eyes, but she blinked them away. I will tell them, she said. Marcus nodded. Good. Now please leave me alone. I need to rest. After she was gone, Marcus turned off the lights and sat in the darkness. He did not sleep. He did not think about the fight. Instead, he thought about his students. Hundreds of them over the years. Children who had grown into adults. Adults who had grown into parents themselves. He thought about what he had taught them. Not just history. Not just fencing. But how to be brave. How to face difficult things. How to stand up when everyone else was sitting down. Tomorrow, he would give his final lesson. He hoped it would be a good one. Dawn on Velanther came slowly. The sun rose over the crystal mountains, painting the sky in colors that had no names in any human language. The light fell upon the palace of ancestors and the ancient blade, circle at its heart. The circle was older than the palace itself. It was carved from a single piece of black crystal, perfectly round, 50 meters across. Around its edges, seats rose in tiers, carved from the same dark stone. This morning, every seat was filled. 12 species had sent representatives to the Galactic Concordat Summit. All of them were here to watch. There were the insect-like Threll with their clicking mandibles. There were the floating gas beings from the Vorn Collective. There were the rock-skinned Skaxi and the liquid Metrathy and the light being Lumars. And there were thousands of Velantari, their skin shifting with excitement, their golden eyes fixed on the circle below. Cameras floated through the air like silver insects. The duel would be broadcast to 100 worlds. Billions of beings would watch what happened here today. Princess Keleth entered first. She walked through the great doors at the north end of the arena, and the crowd erupted in cheers. She was magnificent. Her armor shone like captured starlight. Her plasma blade hummed with deadly energy. She moved with the grace of a predator, every step precise, every motion controlled. She had killed 47 opponents in this circle. Today would be 40-8. She took her position at the center of the circle and waited. The doors at the south end opened. The crowd fell silent. Marcus Cole walked out alone. He was wearing a simple gray suit. The same suit he had worn to the reception the night before. The same suit he would have worn to a business meeting or a dinner party. He had no armor. He carried no weapon. The silence stretched out as he walked across the black crystal. His footsteps echoed in the vast space. When he reached the center of the circle, he stopped 10 meters from Keleth and bowed politely. "Good morning, Your Highness," he said. His voice was calm, pleasant, as if they were meeting for tea. Keleth stared at him. "Where is your armor?" "I do not need armor. Where is your weapon?" "I was hoping you might have one I could borrow." A murmur ran through the crowd. The Voluntary officials looked at each other in confusion. Was this human mocking them? Was he trying to insult their traditions? The master of the circle, an ancient Voluntary named Korath, stepped forward. "Human," he said, "you are offered the traditional weapons of the duel. A blade of living crystal, forged in the heart of our sun. Armor grown from the bones of our world. Do you accept?" Marcus looked at the weapons that were presented to him. The sword was beautiful, a curved blade that glowed with inner light. The armor was elegant, designed to fit his smaller human frame. "Thank you," he said, "but I will decline the armor." "And the blade?" Marcus considered for a moment. "Do you have something simpler? Something wooden, perhaps?" Korath's face twisted with confusion. "Wooden?" "Yes, like a practice sword. The kind your children use when they are learning." The silence in the arena was absolute. No one moved. No one breathed. Keleth's skin flushed through colors of red and orange. Rage. Humiliation. "You mock me," she said. "You mock our traditions." "I do not mock you," Marcus said gently. "I simply prefer wood. It has a nice weight to it." After a long pause, Korath sent a servant to fetch a training sword from the children's practice room. When it was brought, Marcus tested its weight, swung it a few times, and nodded with satisfaction. It was a simple thing, a straight piece of polished wood about a meter long. "This will do nicely," he said. "Thank you." Keleth gripped her plasma blade so tightly that her knuckles shifted through shades of white. She had never been so insulted. She had never wanted to kill someone so badly. "I will make your death slow," she said quietly. "I will make you suffer." Marcus only smiled. "We shall see." Korath raised his hand. "The right of correction has been invoked. Princess Khalith Vershan faces the human Marcus Cole. The duel continues until one fighter yields or dies. Let honor be satisfied." He dropped his hand. Keleth attacked. She moved faster than any human eye could follow. Her blade cut through the air in a perfect arc aimed at Marcus's neck. It was a killing stroke, refined over 2 centuries of practice. It had ended 11 duels in the first second. It hit nothing. Marcus was not there. He had stepped to the side, a small movement, almost casual. The blade passed through empty air. Keleth spun and attacked again. A thrust to the chest. Marcus turned his body, and the blade slid past him. A slash at his legs. He stepped over it like a man stepping over a puddle. A combination attack. 4 strikes in less than a second. Marcus flowed around each one like water flowing around stones. He did not strike back. He did not raise his wooden sword. He simply moved. The crowd watched in stunned silence. This was not possible. No one could move like that. No one could read attacks so perfectly, avoid them so easily. Keleth attacked again and again. Her movements became faster, more desperate. Sweat appeared on her brow. Her breath came in ragged gasps. She had been fighting for 3 minutes, and she had not touched him once. Marcus was barely breathing hard. She stopped, chest heaving, and stared at him. "What are you?" she demanded. Marcus looked at her with those kind eyes. He looked at her the way a teacher looks at a struggling student. "I am just an old man," he said. "An old man who has had a very long time to learn." Caliph screamed and attacked again. Her blade was a blur of light and death. It cut patterns in the air so complex that the cameras could barely track them. Every technique she knew, every secret of her family's ancient style, she threw at this impossible human, and still, she hit nothing but air. 5 minutes passed. 10, 15. Princess Caliph, undefeated champion of the Blade Circle, fell to her knees. She was exhausted. Her arms shook. Her lungs burned. She had never fought so long without landing a blow. Marcus stood before her, still calm, still unhurt. The wooden sword hung loosely at his side. "How?" she whispered. "How is this possible?" Marcus looked at her for a long moment. And then, quietly, he began to speak. The arena was silent. Every being in the vast space leaned forward, straining to hear the human's soft voice. The cameras floated closer, carrying his words to 100 worlds. "You asked what I am," Marcus said. "Let me tell you a story." Caliph remained on her knees, too exhausted to rise, too confused to speak. She could only listen. "Humans do not live long," Marcus began. "A century, if we are lucky. Most of us get far less. We are not the strongest species. We are not the fastest. Our world is harsh. It tried to kill us over and over again. Ice ages froze us. Plagues killed millions of us. We killed each other in wars beyond counting. By all logic, we should have died out long before we ever reached the stars." He began to walk slowly around her, his wooden sword resting on his shoulder. "But we did not die. Do you know why?" Caliph shook her head. "Because we learned something. Something that only comes from desperation. Something that only comes from knowing that every moment is precious, that every generation might be the last." He stopped and looked down at her. "We learned how to master time." "I do not understand," she said. "Not literally. We cannot slow it down or speed it up. But we learned to use it differently than other species." He gestured at the crowd around them. "The Voluntari live for 1,000 years. Your warriors spend 2 centuries perfecting a single fighting style. Your family's technique has been passed down for 40 generations, each warrior making small improvements over their long, long life." He smiled. "Humans do not have that luxury. We have decades, not centuries. So we adapted. We learned to compress time, to squeeze more learning into our short lives than should be possible." He began to move, demonstrating as he spoke. His body flowed through different positions, different stances. "In my 53 years, I have studied 12 different martial arts. Fencing from Europe, Aikido from Japan, Kendo, Judo, Kung Fu, boxing, wrestling, Capoeira from Brazil, Kali from the Philippines. Each one developed over centuries by different human cultures, each one refined and tested in countless real fights." Caliph watched him move. Each style was different. Each one flowed into the next like water changing direction. "But here's the secret," Marcus continued. "I am not special. I am not a great warrior or a legendary fighter. I am just a teacher. A man who taught children and coached a fencing team and ran an Aikido class 3 nights a week at a community center." He stopped and faced her. "Among humans, I am ordinary, average, unremarkable." "That cannot be true," Caliph said. "The way you move, the way you read my attacks, no ordinary person can do that. But I can, because I did not have to create these techniques myself. I inherited them. Thousands of years of human knowledge, passed down from generation to generation, compressed and refined and tested over and over again." His voice grew soft, Every technique that did not work was thrown away. Every technique that did work was taught to the next generation, who made it better. We do not perfect ourselves, princess. We perfect each other. He held up his wooden sword. This is why I needed no armor. Your attacks are powerful, but they are predictable. Your family has practiced the same style for 40 generations, making only small changes. I have seen versions of every technique you use tonight in a dozen different human fighting systems. I knew where your blade would be before you knew yourself. Keleth stared at him. The truth of his words settled into her mind like stones sinking into water. She had trained for 2 centuries. She had thought herself perfect. And this human, this ordinary human who taught children, had seen through her like she was made of glass. We compress time, Marcus said again. We share knowledge freely. We stand on the shoulders of everyone who came before us. A human child today has access to more fighting knowledge than any single Valentari warrior could gather in 10 lifetimes. He walked toward her and extended his hand. This is humanity's true power, princess. Not the strength of one person. The combined wisdom of billions of people over thousands of years, freely given, freely shared, constantly improved. Keleth looked at his hand. She did not take it. Instead, she rose on her own, her legs trembling but her pride still intact. I do not believe you, she said. No species can be so different from what they appear. Then let me show you. He raised his wooden sword. For the first time in the duel, he took an offensive stance. Attack me again, he said. But this time, pay attention. Watch what I do. Learn from it. She hesitated. Her arms ached. Her lungs burned. But she was Valentari. She was the heir to the throne. She would not show weakness. She attacked. This time, Marcus did not simply avoid her. He guided her. Each time she struck, he redirected her blade with the lightest touch, showing her where her balance was wrong, where her stance was weak. He moved with her instead of against her, turning her own momentum into lessons. Your right foot, he said as she stumbled. You lean too far forward. She adjusted. She attacked again. Your grip is too tight. You lose speed. She loosened her fingers. Her next strike was faster. Better, he said. Much better. They moved together through the circle, teacher and student, and the crowd watched in amazement. This was not a duel. This was something they had never seen before. A warrior sharing knowledge in the middle of combat. Finally, after what seemed like hours, Marcus stopped. Keleth was breathing hard, but her movements had already improved. She could feel it. You have great potential, Marcus said. Greater than you know. But you have been limited by your isolation. You train only against those who fight like you. You test yourself only against those who share your weaknesses. He stepped back. If you truly want to become the greatest warrior in the galaxy, you need to learn from everyone. Not just defeat them. Learn from them. Keleth felt something strange in her chest. It took her a moment to recognize it. It was humility. True humility. Something she had never felt before. Why are you telling me this? She asked. I challenged you. I wanted to kill you. I wanted to humiliate your entire species. Marcus smiled. It was a warm smile, full of kindness. Because the best teachers want their students to surpass them. Because the greatest warriors are not the ones who destroy their enemies, but the ones who turn enemies into friends. He paused. And because I see in you the same fire I saw in my best students. The same drive. The same hunger to improve. He lowered his wooden sword. The duel is over, princess. By your laws, I have won. Now comes the question that matters. What happens next? Keleth looked at him. She looked at the wooden sword in his hand. She looked at her own plasma blade, suddenly feeling like it weighed 1,000 kilograms. She did not know what happened next on, but for the first time in her life, she wanted to find out. The arena had gone completely silent. Not a whisper, not a breath. Every being in that vast space understood that something extraordinary was happening. By voluntary law, Marcus Cole had won the right of correction. He had the right to demand Callus' life. He had the right to claim territory from the voluntary empire. He had the right to ask for wealth beyond imagination, or political power that would change the balance of the entire galaxy. The human delegation held their breath. Lieutenant Chun felt her heart pounding. This was the moment humanity had been waiting for. Finally, they had leverage. Finally, they had something to negotiate with. But Marcus did not look at the dignitaries. He did not look at the cameras. He looked at the exhausted princess who stood before him. And he saw something that no one else in the arena could see. He saw possibility. He set down his wooden sword. "Your Highness," he said, "I claim no trophy from this duel." A gasp ran through the crowd. Even Kelleth looked up in surprise. "No territory," Marcus continued. "No wealth, no political concessions. Then what do you want?" Kelleth asked. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Marcus extended his hand to her. "I want to offer you a gift." She stared at his hand like it was a foreign object. In 200 years, no one had ever offered her anything without expecting something in return. That was not how power worked. That was not how the galaxy worked. "What gift?" she asked. "An invitation." Marcus smiled. "Come to Earth. Train with human masters across every discipline. Learn the 1,000 fighting arts that our short, desperate history has created. Let our teachers share their knowledge with you freely, as we share it with each other." Calleth felt something shift inside her. The anger that had driven her for so long began to crumble. The pride that had made her believe she was perfect began to crack. "Why?" she asked. "Why would you give me this? I challenged you. I wanted to destroy you. Because humans did not become who we are by hoarding our knowledge," Marcus said. "We did not grow strong by crushing those we defeated. We grew strong by teaching, by lifting others up, by turning enemies into friends." He kept his hand extended. "You are the most talented warrior I have ever faced, Princess. With proper training, with exposure to new ideas and techniques, you could become something your ancestors never dreamed of. You could become great. And what do you gain from my greatness?" Marcus thought about this for a moment. "When I was a young man, I had a teacher. An old Japanese man who taught Aikido in a small room above a grocery store. He was not famous. He was not rich. But he had devoted his entire life to learning and to teaching others what he had learned." He paused. "One day, I asked him why he did it. Why he spent so many hours teaching students who would never pay him enough to make a living. Do you know what he told me?" Kelleth shook her head. He said, "I teach because I want to see what my students will do with what I give them. I want to see them take my knowledge and build something better. I want to die knowing that I added something to the world." Marcus's voice grew soft. "That is what I gain, Princess. The chance to see what you become." Calleth felt tears forming in her eyes. She did not understand why. Valenthari did not cry. Warriors did not show weakness. But somehow, in this moment, it did not feel like weakness. Slowly, she reached out and took his hand. The arena exploded with noise. Some cheered. Some shouted in confusion. Some simply stared in disbelief. The cameras captured everything. This image, the ancient warrior princess taking the hand of the humble human teacher, would spread across the galaxy within hours. Marcus helped her to her feet. "You have made a brave choice," he said. "The bravest choice is always to learn." King Torvax descended from the royal box. The crowd parted before him. When he reached his daughter and the human, he stopped and studied them both with ancient eyes. "You could have demanded anything," he said to Marcus. "Power, wealth, the humiliation of my people." "Yes," Marcus agreed. "I could have. But you chose to offer my daughter education instead." The old king was quiet for a long moment. "I have lived for over 1,000 years. I have seen countless species rise and fall. I have seen countless species rise and fall. I thought I understood power." He looked at Marcus with new respect. "I was wrong." He turned to his daughter. "Go with him," he said. "Learn what he has to teach. And when you return, share that knowledge with our people. Perhaps it is time for the Velanthari to learn a new way of being strong." In the weeks that followed, everything changed. Calith traveled to Earth with a small delegation. She was nervous at first, uncertain. But Marcus introduced her to teachers across the world. An Aikido master in Japan who was 90 years old and still threw students half his age. A boxing coach in Philadelphia who had trained 3 world champions. A Kali instructor in the Philippines who could disarm anyone in less than 2 seconds. Each of them welcomed her. Each of them shared their knowledge freely. They did not ask for payment. They did not demand loyalty. They simply taught, because teaching was what they did. Calith trained for 5 years on Earth. She learned 17 different martial arts. She sparred with humans from every country, every background. She discovered that strength came in many forms. That power was not just about defeating opponents, but about understanding them. When she returned to Velantha, she was a different person. Stronger, yes, but also wiser, more open, more curious. And when her father finally passed and she became Queen Calith, she announced something that shocked the entire Velanthari. Empire thought she would open the first academy in their history, where warriors from any species could train together, where knowledge would be shared freely, where the old ways of isolation and conquest would give way to something new. She named it the Marcus Cole Institute of Cultural Exchange. The opening ceremony was held in the ancient Blade Circle where everything had begun. Representatives from 20 different species attended. Human teachers stood alongside Velantharin's masters, sharing techniques, exchanging ideas, building something that had never existed before. Marcus was there, of course. He was 63 now, his hair completely white, his movements slower than they had been. But his eyes were still kind, and his smile was still warm. He stood in the crowd with his family. His daughter Maria had come, and his grandchildren Thomas and Sophie. Now teenagers full of questions and dreams. When Queen Calith took the stage to give her speech, she looked out at the gathered crowd and found Marcus immediately. "This academy exists because of one human," she said. "A man who could have demanded power and chose to offer education instead. A man who saw potential in his enemy and decided to nurture it rather than destroy it." A voice carried across the arena. "He taught me that true strength is not measured by how many opponents you defeat, but by how many you raise up." She smiled at him. "Thank you, Marcus Cole. Thank you for showing the galaxy a better way." The crowd applauded. The cameras broadcast her words to 100 worlds. Marcus watched his grandchildren clapping and cheering, their eyes bright with pride. He thought about his old Aikido teacher and the words he had spoken so many years ago. He thought about all the students he had taught, all the lives he had touched, all the small moments that had led to this. He felt tears on his cheeks and quickly wiped them away. "Are you okay, Grandpa?" Sophie asked. "Yes," he said, his voice thick. "Just allergies." She laughed and took his hand. In the years that followed, the Marcus Cole Institute spread across the galaxy. Branch academies opened on 12 worlds. Species that had been enemies for centuries trained together, learned from each other, discovered that they had more in common than they had ever believed. Humanity's reputation transformed. They were no longer seen as weak newcomers, barely worth noticing. They were seen as teachers, as connectors, as the species that had turned their greatest weakness, their short lives, into their greatest strength. And in a small house in Ohio, on a quiet street where children still played and dogs still barked, an old photograph hung on the wall. It showed a young Marcus Cole, barely 30 years old, standing in a small room above a grocery store, learning his first Aikido technique from a smiling Japanese man. Beneath the photograph, someone had written a quote, "The best teachers want their students to surpass them." It was the beginning of everything. It was the lesson that changed the galaxy.